night. Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate it. I appreciate the support, the love, spending more time on this platform as opposed to going live on all the others. But once again, basketball is basketball. The problem that I keep on seeing every time something pops up on my feed, it's about LeBron James, LeBron James, LeBron James. Has anybody thought just for a moment to consider the fact maybe that 52 million he can rub on whatever is hurting him and make it feel better? Maybe the possibility that his wounds, his injuries, his discourse, his issues with the Lakers are all self inflicted. What exactly should anybody feel sorry for when it comes to this guy? I don't understand. And how he keeps dominating the headlines, I don't understand either. Hell, he's got me over here talking about him, and I don't even like the guy. I don't like the guy. But I give him credit where credit is due. He's a top 25 player. And that's saying a lot because there's a lot of great players that we go and we mainly talk about basketball history and the greats, the forgotten ones, the ones that don't get the respect that they deserve. But when you got a guy that continuously, non-stop, like it's a, you know, like a soap opera. You just can't get enough. You got so much other things to talk about in the NBA, whether it be the summer league, whether it be the debut of Cooper Flag, which is somehow trying to be overshadowed by the Lakers. I get it. They're trying to get the largest market in LA over here. So you got viewership, yada, yada, yada. That's fine. But at the same time, be realistic. And as far as, you know, the rest of the games thus far, they've been entertaining. Nobody, like I said, has been lights out, unbelievable. Then again, what you see here in the G League and the Summer League doesn't necessarily translate to what you're going to see once the actual NBA kicks off. You're going to see a lot of these guys come and go, and you'll never see them again. And some of them you might see overseas. Some of them you might see in the Big Three. Some of them you might see in the G League, like Mac McClung, permanently, you know. But that's a different story altogether. But when it comes to LeBron, I mean, what do you want? You can't have things both ways. You can't drive a car in forward and reverse and then sit here and complain that you're not a priority. Well, you're not going to be a priority. Nobody at your advanced age, I'm not saying that you're in bad shape or anything like that. You're an athletic phenom. Nobody's taking that away from you, but at the same time, nobody is going to invest in you. You're not like, you know, a 64 and a half Mustang. You know what I'm saying? You're not. You know, anybody that's sitting here trying to push that narrative or that lie rather that you are somehow the greatest player is A, not informed enough, B, hasn't watched enough basketball, and C, is lying to themselves, you, and anybody that's crazy enough to listen to that psychobabble. Nobody would ever take any of that serious because it's seriously not true. And I don't have to name players because there's so many of them that we can go on and on. I can give you my top 10 and he's not in it, and you can say whatever you want about my top 10. And I would love to hear your comments, so I'll give them to you. number 1 through 5, and they're in no particular order. These are just 5 individuals. You can put them in whatever order you want, but I got Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Bill Russell, Will Chamberlain, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Lou Alcindor, however you know him. Same guy, just one's outspoken in his political advocacy, etc. He got a lot of hate for that too, in case you weren't aware, but that's a different story and a different time for a different show. And I didn't plan on going live twice, but now that I got, thankfully, enough subscribers, thanks to you wonderful people, which I appreciate and care for and respect very much. So thank you. Please continue to hit that subscribe, like, share, notify. And I'm going to continue to put out lives, chop them up, get people on here that like to talk sports, basketball, football primarily. But I'm not opposed to other sports and other topics either. But back to it. So the point that I'm trying to make is my top 5 has never changed since I've watched enough basketball and seen enough of these guys to say that that is a solid top 5. My 6 through 10 is going to consist of Magic, Kobe, Shaq, TD, or Tim Duncan, the big fundamental, and the Dream, Hakeem, or Hakeem, depending on the name change, Olajuwon. There's 1 through 10 right there. And you're going to tell me that LeBron James is better than my 1 through 5 or my 6 through 10. I'm going to say no, he is not. He isn't. No. He's played a considerable amount longer, and he's not the oldest player. I believe that was Kevin Willis, if I'm not mistaken, that played a lot longer, and, an Iron Man. Karl Malone was an Iron Man, and like I said earlier, LeBron James is Karl Malone with rings. That's it. You got 2, 3, 4 dribbles tops, a couple steps, plus a couple more steps that nobody ever really talks about, but I didn't miss them. I know they were there. I'm just saying, and not making it up. Real shit. Real talk. I don't get paid by Clutch Media, so I don't have anything to lie or hide or make up. Therefore, what I say is truth, it's the facts, it's honest. And like I said, I'm just letting you know that if you want to really understand basketball, and in particular the NBA, you got to go back and see all the contestants, all the contenders, everybody that's competing and has competed, and then you could have an honest evaluation, and based on what your criteria may or may not be of what would quantify somebody to be in that top 10, top 15, top 20, top 25 of all time, of all the people that play the game of basketball. There's no disrespect to that. There's a big difference between the top 5 guys, even, going to the top 10, and then my 11 through 15. It's a wild mix-up of guys that you probably wouldn't think that would be in there, but you're going to have Havlicek in there, or Hondo. You're going to have guys like Bob Pettit in there, absolutely. You're going to have Jerry West in there, there's no doubt. You're going to have Bob Cousy in there, absolutely, without a doubt. And you're going to have, you guys are going to think that I'm wild, think that I'm crazy, but you got to go back, look at history, and understand who you're dealing with. You're going to have Kevin McHale right there with them. So I might be a little bit biased when it comes to my team. I'm a Celtics guy, but you're talking about an all-time great two-way player, Kevin McHale, that you can depend on nonstop. And the way that I look at it, it was either going to be McHale or I was going to put Isaiah in there. And you know what? Unlike the NBA in the last couple, in the last 5 years when they could have won a co-MVP, I'm going to go ahead and put Isaiah and McHale in that co spot through the 11 through 15. So mathematically, you can call me motherfucking Terrence Howard all you want. I realize I added an extra person, but it's been tearing me up for a long time, and they both deserve where they're at. So they're both in there. But like I said, Havlicek, Kuzi, I could have a whole list of top guys all named Bob Lanier, Bob Cousy, Bob McAdoo, Bob Pettit, Bob Ori. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those deals that the more you know, the more you've seen, the more you understand, the more you appreciate where things have come from and where we're at today in way of basketball in general. So it's important as far as the history goes. Another thing is, why do they call me Mad Max? Well, I'm reserved for the most part, unless provoked. In which case, everything's off the table. Because I go from zero to batshit crazy without even knowing it. And that's just one of those things. And this, it's great, but the rest, the party part, it's full. It's got plenty of color. It's crazy. I don't do anything wild with it. But over here, it's like, you start at the bottom and work your way up. I don't know. It's one of those things. And I'm down in the studio over there, and I didn't feel like pulling this one up because I got to do an update on that laptop over here. But, yeah. And, you're like, why don't you have Maravich on there? The reason I don't have Maravich, and in case, here we go, a little NBA history for you. Pete Maravich is the only player that I can think of right now, short of you got your Jackie Robinson, whose number is universally retired in baseball. So I don't believe it's limited, or I believe it's limited to just baseball. I don't believe it's any other sport, but if I'm wrong, please correct me on that. I don't follow baseball that closely, with the exception of the Royals that aren't doing all that great, so there's not much to talk about with the Royals. But what I will say is this. Excuse me. There's Pete Maravich, and if you didn't know, Pete Maravich, who passed away almost, in a prophetic type of way to where, he predicted his own death, if you want to look at it in those terms, which I don't believe that he did or he chose to do or go out the way that he did, though he probably went out the way he did want to go out, playing a game of pickup basketball after becoming a very religious man that's close to the Lord, and now he's with the Lord. So if you believe that to be the case, which I do in all my heart, then good for you, and God bless Pete Maravich. May he rest in peace, along with many other greats like Junior Bridgman that a lot of people don't give credit to. But back to Pete Maravich, one of the only players that I can think of that has his number and jersey retired by three different organizations. Three different organizations. The Atlanta Hawks, okay, the Utah Jazz, all right, and the New Orleans Pelicans. Fact. Just saying. Well, guys, 15 minutes. I know it's not as fancy as when I'm in the studio or one of the other computers where I'm on the StreamYard, but I didn't feel like setting it up, and it's a whole lot easier to just push a couple buttons on this and just go live. But when I do get animated, you'll know. And I'm not out here to sit here and argue. I would love a debate with anybody, and anybody is always welcome on my show, on my channel. No issues, no problems, nothing but hate. Listen, no hate. That's what I'm talking about. If you're all about trying to hate on something or somebody, then I don't need that in my life. I got enough problems without that, just like anybody else. All right, I'm a human being. You respect me, you show me respect. I'll do the same with you. But thank you all once again for your subscription, for your viewership, for everything that you do. And all I can say now is have a good evening. Be careful, be safe out there. Nothing good happens past 2 a.m. If you got young ones, make sure you know where they're at and what they're doing. And be mindful in general of what's going on in their lives, because it's your responsibility ultimately to take care of them, teach them right, and make sure that they don't do dumb shit. Okay? Otherwise, guys, nothing but love. Sending good vibes all your way. Be good, and I'll talk to you again soon.